Hi, folks. Thank you for tuning into this recorded candidate information session. The purpose of this presentation is to provide those who are interested in running in the upcoming general local election with information on the election process and roles and responsibilities in regard to becoming a locally elected official in British Columbia. My name is Kendra Kinsley. I am the corporate officer and the chief election officer with the District of Summerland. And with me presenting is Amanda Muick, the corporate services assistant and presiding election official with the district. A quick overview of the presentation and topics and material that we will be covering: why run for office, what to expect as an elected official, information on the election process and procedures, what to expect after you've been elected, and resources from the province of British Columbia regarding the election and becoming a locally elected official, and how to submit questions regarding the process.
As a locally elected official, you will be entrusted with making decisions that directly affect the daily lives of residents, local business owners, and others in the community. It is important to think about how you can best serve your community and if you are elected and the expectations of being a locally elected official. An effective local government requires dedicated, ethical, and informed leaders who are committed to their communities. Perhaps you want to become a local elected official so you can be actively involved in the local democratic process, contribute your experience and knowledge, address various issues in or lead change in your community.
On average, council members will spend approximately 20 hours per week on district-related business. Council meets on the second and fourth Monday of the month as set by the council procedure bylaw. Meetings are scheduled from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. and again from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Evening meetings are predominantly for development-related items. Council meetings are held in person, but the option for council members to participate electronically is authorized through the council procedure bylaw. Types of council meetings that, if elected, you will attend include regular council meetings, committee of the whole meetings, closed sessions, special meetings, and public hearings. In 2021, 99 meetings of council were held, including public hearings and committee of the wholes. Council meeting preparation usually involves a lot of reading, as agendas are often over 100 pages. You may find it necessary to conduct independent research, site visits, talking to members of the community, learning about issues, and seeing what other communities are doing prior to the meeting or considering an item of business. Remuneration for council members is as follows. The mayor remuneration for 2022 is $38,162. Council remuneration is $17,173. The Council Remuneration Task Force recently put forward recommendations, which were adopted by Council, to increase remuneration by 2% for 2023, with the 2023 yearly CPI adjustment to be paused, and that the district will pay for 50% of a benefits package for elected officials should they choose to participate, and finally, increases to meal allowances when traveling on district businesses. The task force will meet in 18 months to revisit recommendations based on data once inflation has stabilized. In addition to council meetings, and depending on the needs of council under legislation has the ability to create committees to provide advice and recommendations on a wide range of programs and issues. Council members often sit on external agency committees or act as liaisons or representatives, including on the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen Board of Directors, the Okanagan Regional Library Board, and the Municipal Insurance Association of BC. Council members may choose to run for a position on an external agency board, including the Southern Interior Local Government Association, the Union of British Columbia Municipalities, and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. Council committees and external appointments or positions will require additional time commitments above and beyond that. That is what required for council meetings and district business. Additional remuneration may be provided when a council member is appointed to an external agency, including the RDOS board. Additional remuneration is not provided for participating in council committees. Council members will also be expected to spend additional time prepping for council and committee meetings, meetings with residents, and monitoring their council email as it is publicly available. Members will be invited to attend media and community events and will be given the option to attend various professional development opportunities and conferences, including the annual Southern Interior Local Government Association Conference, the Union of British Columbia Municipalities Convention, and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Convention. The community charter, the district's council procedure bylaw, and the newly adopted code of conduct govern the behavior and conduct of council members. Section 100 of the community charter regulates conflict of interest and the disclosure of conflict amongst council members. Section 105 of the community charter regulates the restrictions on accepting gifts. Section 108 of the community charter regulates restrictions on the use of insider information. Section 117 of the community charter regulates confidentiality of a council member. Section 122 of the community charter regulates the council may only exercise its authority by resolution or by bylaw. The council procedure bylaw regulates proceedings of council and conduct of council members at council meetings. And in May of 2022, council adopted a code of conduct. The code of conduct sets shared expectations for the conduct or behavior to promote further responsible conduct amongst its members and expectations for how members shall conduct themselves while carrying out responsibilities and in their work as a collective decision-making body for the community. The code of conduct is in addition to the statutory requirements of the community charter. The province has enacted legislation requiring that newly elected councils either create a policy if they do not have one or review their existing policy or code of conduct within 6 months of a general local election that will require local governments, specifically council, to consider adopting or updating the policy or the code of conduct within 6 months after their first regular council meeting following the election. The amended legislation also requires that a council which chooses not to establish or review a policy or a code of conduct to make available to the public on request a statement respecting the reasons for its decisions. Councils that choose not to establish or review a code of conduct also need to reconsider that decision before January 1st of the year of the next general local election.
Councils and regional district boards act as a political forum through which citizens, families, and business owners within the local community express their collective vision. Councils and regional district boards also provide services and programs to the community. The role of a council and regional district board is to make decisions on policy, service levels, and tax levels, collectively directs through resolution by policy direction and setting service level expectations, the chief administrative officer as to where resources are to be focused, receives information from citizens and staff, sets strategic corporate direction and goals, directs the preparation, amendment, and adoption of the financial plan. Council delegates to its staff the authority to execute its actions, such as the authority to implement and enforce bylaws and to provide services to citizens on behalf of council.
Section 115 and 116 of the community charter outlines the responsibilities of mayor and council. Every council member has the following responsibilities: to consider the well-being and interests of the municipality and its community, to contribute to the development and evaluation of the policies and programs of the municipality respecting its services and other activities, to participate in council meetings, committee meetings, and meeting of other bodies to which the member is appointed. And while the mayor shares the same responsibilities as council, the mayor also has several additional responsibilities, including that the mayor is the head and the chief executive officer of the municipality. The mayor is to provide leadership to the council, including by recommending bylaws, resolutions, and other measures that, in the mayor's opinion, may assist the peace and order and good government of the municipality. To communicate information to council, to preside at council meetings when in attendance, to provide on behalf of council general direction to municipal officers respecting the implementation of municipal policies, programs, and other directions of council, to establish standing committees, to suspend municipal officers and employees, and to reflect the will of council and to carry out other duties on behalf of council. Locally elected officials provide direction through the Chief Administrative Officer, also known as the CAO, while staff manage and implement the council's decisions and direction. Local governments in British Columbia often establish a CAO position, although this position is not required by legislation. The CAO is typically the only member of staff directly hired by the council and is the head of operations. The CAO is then responsible and accountable for hiring and supervising all other staff, ensuring priorities and policies of council are implemented, and is accountable for the service delivery to the community. The CAO provides leadership to staff and manages the day-to-day operations of the organization and is responsible to coordinate emergency response when the community is threatened. The relationship between the CAO and the mayor provides a critical link between council and staff.
Under the leadership of the CAO, the role of district staff is to implement the direction, decisions, and policy of council in accordance with municipal bylaws and provincial and federal legislation. Provide council with information and professional advice to ensure informed decision-making, manage the local government resources, human, financial, and intellectual, communicate local government policy and decisions to the public and other orders of government. The district is comprised of 93 permanent full-time employees, 4 part-time staff, and 30 auxiliary employees. This portion of the presentation will focus on preparing candidates for the upcoming general local election and will cover the following: key dates, candidate eligibility, election campaigns, nomination process, candidate representatives, Elections BC and the Local Elections Campaign Financing Act, voting, including general voting day and after general voting day, and finally, election offenses. The upcoming key dates for the general local election are provided on this slide, which includes the nomination period, campaign period, advance voting dates, special voting opportunities, general voting opportunities, inaugural council meeting, deadline for filing financial disclosure statements with Elections BC, and the late filing deadline. A person may become a candidate in a local election as long as they have not been disqualified from seeking or holding elected office. A candidate for mayor and councillor must be a Canadian citizen, 18 years of age or more on general voting day, live in BC for at least 6 months prior to submitting nomination papers, not be disqualified by any law or statute from being nominated, elected, or holding office. Please note that there is no requirement to be a resident or own property within the municipality to run for local office. A few reasons why a person is ineligible to run for office includes having been convicted or sentenced for an indictable offense and are in custody, have been found guilty of an election offense, are judges of the provincial courts, Supreme Court, or Court of Appeal, are involuntary confined to a psychiatric facility or other institution, have been disqualified for specified reasons such as failing to file a candidate disclosure statement in a previous election, failing to make an oath of office, or failing to attend local government meetings in the manner and frequency required by the community charter, or have otherwise been disqualified from being nominated for, elected to, or holding office under the Local Government Act, Community Charter, or the Local Elections Campaign Financing Act, or any other enactment or law. The following election campaign periods during an election year include the election period that begins at the start of the calendar year, January 1, in which the general local election will be held and ends at the start of the campaign period. Candidates must report all expenses and contributions incurred during the election period. The pre-campaign period for general local elections begins on the 89th day before general voting and ends at the start of the campaign period, 28 days before general voting day. Election advertising rules come into force and continue through general voting day. The campaign period for general local elections begins on the 28th day before general voting day and ends on the close of general voting day. Details about the campaign period will be discussed in the next slide.
The campaign period begins the 28th day before general voting day and ends at the close of voting on general voting day. The dates for this period are Saturday, September 17th, 2022 to Saturday, October 15th, 2022. Candidate and third-party expense limits apply during this time. Campaign expense limits for mayoral candidates are $13,907.16 and $6,953.58 for councillor candidates. These limits and regulations regarding campaign expenses and contributions are set by Elections BC. Campaign signs and advertising are regulated by both the District of Summerland Sign Bylaw and by Elections BC. The District of Summerland Sign Bylaw regulates the placement of signs and the period that signs may be installed and removed. A copy of the bylaw has been included in nomination packages for those that are interested in running. Elections BC regulates the sponsorship Sponsorship information must be included on all advertisements. The Local Government Act dictates that campaign signs and activities must not be within 100 meetings of a voting place during any voting opportunity. This would include advanced voting, special voting, and on general voting day. Advertising on general voting day, October 15th, is not allowed. Nomination packages are available and may be picked up from the district office during regular business hours, Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m., or by emailing elections@summerland.ca to obtain a package. Nomination packages will remain available until the end of the nomination period, which is Friday, September 9th, 2022 at 4 p.m. Nomination period begins Tuesday, August 30th at 9 a.m. and goes until Friday, September 9th at 4 p.m. Nomination papers must be filed with the Chief Election Officer no later than 4 p.m. on September 9th. Late submissions will not be accepted as late filing is not permitted. You must file your nomination papers with the Chief Election Officer or with the Deputy Chief Election Officer at Municipal Hall. Appointments during regular business hours are recommended and can be made by contacting the Chief Election Officer. Contact information will be provided at the end of this presentation. The solemn declaration must be made in front of the Chief Election Officer or a commissioner for taking oath and affidavits before signing nomination papers. Please note, if nomination papers are signed before a commissioner, nomination documents may be faxed or emailed to the Chief Election Officer. However, original documents must be received no later than September 16th, 2022 at 4 p.m. Prospective candidates may reconsider and withdraw their candidacy during the nomination period and for 7 days following the close of nomination. The prospective candidate must provide written notice of their withdrawal to the Chief Election Officer, and the Chief Election Officer must then remove the prospective candidate's name from the ballot. In order to complete the nomination process and properly file the nomination papers, each candidate must be nominated by at least 2 qualified electors from the jurisdiction where the candidate is seeking to be elected. A qualified nominator must be eligible to vote in the District of Summerland and preferably registered on the provincial voters list. Please contact the Chief Election Officer to ensure that you are on the voters list. A prospective candidate officially becomes a candidate when they have submitted all the required information in the nomination package and have been declared a candidate by the Chief Election Officer. Nomination documents are available for public inspection at Municipal Hall during regular office hours and on the district's website from the time they have been submitted until 30 days after the election results have been declared.
A candidate may appoint an individual or individuals to assist running an election campaign and to otherwise represent the candidate when the candidate is unable to appear in person. Each candidate may choose to appoint an official agent or scrutineers. Every candidate must have a financial agent. A financial agent is a representative that candidates and elector organizations are legally required to have during an election campaign. A candidate acts as their own financial agent unless they appoint another individual to the position. The appointment of a financial agent by a candidate must be made in writing, and the person must consent to the appointment. Financial agents are responsible for administering campaign finances in accordance with the Local Elections Campaign Financing Act. This includes opening and depositing contributions to and paying election-related expenses from a candidate's campaign account, maintaining records for campaign contributions, election expenses, and all other campaign transactions, and filing the candidate's required disclosure statement with the Elections BC within 90 days following general voting day. Candidates may appoint an official agent to represent them during the election process. The official agent can act as the campaign manager or spokesperson or be the point of contact for the people helping on the candidate's election campaign. Candidates must appoint their official agent in writing and deliver the appointment, including the name and address of the person, to the Chief Election Officer as soon as practicable after the appointment has been made. Scrutineers may be appointed in writing by a candidate or their official agent if delegated authority to represent the candidate by observing the conduct of voting and counting proceedings for the election. They must carry a copy of appointment form and sign in with the CEO on arrival and departure of the voting location. Each candidate must or should review the role of the scrutineer, no speaking with electors or election officials except to report an object or procedural question to the CEO, and must remain in the scrutineer placement at the voting location as designated by the Chief Election Officer. Each scrutineer must make a solemn declaration to preserve the secrecy of the ballot and not interfere with an elector marking a ballot. Encourage your scrutineer to visit Municipal Hall to complete their declaration before voting day. Each candidate representative who attends a voting place must have made a solemn declaration to preserve the secrecy of the ballot and not to interfere with an elector marking a ballot. Official agents and scrutineers may attend a voting place once they have made their solemn declaration. Financial agents must have permission from the presiding election official to be present at the voting place. Elections BC does not administer voting or candidate nominations for local elections. This is the responsibility of the Chief Election Officer and local government. Campaign financing and advertising rules under the Local Elections Campaign Financing Act create accountability and transparency around campaign contributions received and election expenses incurred during general local elections. All campaign financial requirements and disclosures and election advertising is the responsibility of Elections BC. Elections BC is also responsible for enforcement of advertising provisions under the Local Elections Campaign Financing Act. The Local Elections Campaign Financing Act sets out campaign financing and advertising offenses and resulting penalties that may be imposed on candidates, elector organizations, and third-party sponsors if they do not comply with the rules.
The Local Election Campaign Financing Act provides regulations and requires the following. A candidate must appoint a financial agent. This can be the candidate themselves or another individual. Each candidate must maintain a campaign bank account for the full election period, which is January 1st, 2022 to October 15th, 2022, and ensure that all campaign contributions and expenses are processed through this account. As stated previously in this presentation, the expense limits for mayoral candidates is $13,907.16 and $6,953.58 for council candidates. More information regarding contributions and expenses can be obtained by contacting Elections BC or by visiting their website. Contact information will be provided on the next slide. And finally, statement of financial disclosure and expense records must be filed by the candidate directly with Elections BC within 90 days of general voting day, which is January 13th, 2023. All inquiries related to campaign financing, third-party sponsors, and advertising must be directed to Elections BC at the contact information provided on this slide.
An election bylaw enables a municipal council to make decisions about election administration, such as whether voting machines will be used, mail ballot voting will be available, additional advance voting opportunities will be offered, voter registration will be conducted in advance or on voting day only, and/or nomination deposits will be required. The District of Summerland elections and assent voting bylaw regulates and authorizes the following: the use of provincial voter list as the method of elector registration, the use of automated voting machines, regulates that the order of names on the ballot will determine by lot, regulations that a tie vote would be determined by lot resolution, and authorizes nomination and endorsement documents to be placed on the district's website for viewing.
Voting places on general voting day and all advanced voting days must be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. local time. Local governments may set specific hours for any special voting opportunities or additional advanced voting days held during the local elections. Advanced voting opportunities will be held on October 5th and October 13th, 2022 from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Summerland Arena Banquet Room. Special voting opportunities will be held on October 6th and October 7th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., on October 6th at Angus Place and October 7th at the Summerland Seniors Village. However, please note that only those electors who reside, are visiting family, or are employed at the location may vote in a special voting opportunity. These are not open to the general public. and general voting day will be held on October 15th, 2022 from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. in the Summerland Secondary School Gymnasium. Following the close of general voting day, the preliminary results will be announced on October 15th following the counting and tallying of the ballots. Official results must be declared within 4 days from the close of general voting day. The chief election officer must state the number of ballots cast in favor of each candidate for each position. Both preliminary and official results will be announced on the district's website and on Civic Info BC. Should there be a tie vote for any of the races, mayor, councillor, or school district trustee, it must be broken in accordance with the district's election and assent voting procedures bylaw. The district's bylaw specifies that drawing by lot will be used as the method for breaking a tie between candidates in accordance with the Local Government Act. An eligible elector, a candidate representative, or the chief election officer may apply to the provincial court for a judicial recount. An application for a judicial recount can only proceed on the basis that ballots were incorrectly accepted or rejected, ballot account does not accurately record the number of valid votes for a candidate, final determination of the results did not correctly calculate the total number of valid votes for a candidate, and the same number of votes were received by 2 or more candidates. The period to apply for a judicial recount begins as soon as the official election results have been declared and ends 9 days after the close of general voting day. The provincial courts declared the election results at the completion of the ballot recount. General local election offenses fall under one of 2 categories: general local election offenses committed under the Local Government Act and campaign financing and election advertising offenses committed under the Local Elections Campaign Financing Act. General local election offenses include activities such as vote buying, intimidation, providing or distributing false information, or contravening voting provisions. Other election offenses include falsely withdrawing a candidate or an endorsement, fraudulently voting, interfering with the ballot or ballot boxes, canvassing, advertising, or otherwise visibly supporting a candidate within 100 meters of a voting place during voting proceedings, and conducting any other activity contrary to the Local Government Act. Election offenses are generally dealt with by the Supreme Court of BC, and typically these types of offenses are prosecuted if the Crown Council chooses to proceed with laying charges after the police have undertaken an investigation and make a recommendation to Crown Council. Campaign financing offenses refer to contraventions of the rules under the Local Elections Campaign Financing Act. These type of offenses may be committed by candidates, financial agents, elector organizations, and third-party sponsors. Campaign financing offenses are managed through Elections BC, who investigates and enforces the campaign financing disclosure requirements, including expense limits, campaign contribution limits, and election advertising rules under the Local Elections Campaign Financing Act. Penalties for each type of offense can include disqualification from holding office for a certain period of time, fines up to a maximum amount of dollars, usually $5,000 or $10,000, and potential imprisonment.
You have been elected, so now what? In the next few slides, we will review key dates, inaugural meeting, council orientation, and 2023 budget dates. The following key dates that will require the attendance of the newly elected council are October 24th to 28th, council orientation. On November 7th, the inaugural meeting. November 8th to 9th, the governance session. November 14th, the first regular meeting of council, and November 24th and 25th, the strategic planning session. The next several weeks following the election will require a substantial time commitment from those who are elected.
In accordance with the district's council procedure bylaw, the first council meeting, otherwise known as the inaugural meeting, must be held on the first Monday in November in the year of the election. The inaugural meeting has been scheduled for November 7th, 2022. At the inaugural meeting, each candidate must take their oath of office before they can assume their position on council. The oath of office may be made before a judge, a justice of peace, or a commissioner for taking oaths and affidavits. Candidates who fail to take their oath of office within the required timeframe are disqualified from holding office until after the next general local election. A candidate may take the oath of office or solemn affirmation as soon as they are declared elected by the chief election officer. However, municipal councillors formally take office at the first scheduled council meeting following the general local election. Additionally, at the inaugural meeting, appointments to the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen must be made, Board of Directors must be made at this meeting. Municipal councilors appointed to the Regional District Board of Directors must make a second oath or solemn affirmation in addition to the one that they made before they assumed their position on the municipal council. The term of office for a municipal council member appointed to the Regional District Board of Directors begins when the person has made their oath or solemn affirmation as a Regional District Director. Those that are elected should make every effort to attend the following council orientation sessions. On October 24th to 28th, sessions or a session with the senior management team will be provided to present an overview of each senior management's department of their current programs. On November 8th and 9th, George Cuff will provide a session to council on the principles of governance and the elements of effective organizations. On November 24th to 25th, Randy Deal will lead council through a strategic planning session to achieve short and long-term goals while making ongoing adjustments to address new challenges and to help build a strong council and administrative team. In addition to the scheduled orientation sessions, 2023 budget preparations will need to begin as soon as possible following the election. Budget preparation requires a significant amount of time, both during meetings as well as on each council member's own time, to be able to consider, deliberate, and to pass the 2023 budget. Council will first consider the district utility budget and rates. 5 meetings were scheduled in the fall and winter of 2021 to adopt the utility budgets for 2022. This included 3 special meetings, 1 regular meeting, and a public open house. It is anticipated that the same amount of time and meetings will be required for the 2023 utility budgets and rates. Utility rates must be set by December 31st, 2022, so that they may take effect January 1st, 2023. The general and capital budget will be considered throughout January to April 2023 over a series of meetings. Similar to the utility budgets, in 2022, 5 special meetings, 1 public open house, and 4 regularly scheduled meetings were required to adopt and pass the budget. This will likely be the same for the 2023 budget process.
The Ministry of Municipal Affairs has created and produced a variety of 2022 general local election education materials that can be found on the above noted links. Links to these resources can also be found on the District of Summerland's webpage under the General Local Elections heading.
All questions regarding the election process are to be directed to the Chief Election Officer or Deputy Chief Election Officer at elections@summerland.ca or by calling 250-404-4037. Questions will be responded to and questions and answers will be posted for all other candidates to view. All inquiries related to campaign financing, third-party sponsored, and advertising must be directed to Elections BC at the noted contact information on this slide. This concludes the end of the candidate information session. Thank you for taking the time to tune in to learn more about the process for and running in the upcoming general local election.